Before we jump into today's episode, I want to speak to you, the owner who's listening right now. Okay. You're telling yourself that this is the week. This is the week that you're going to stay strategic, that you're not going to get into the weeds, that you're going to focus on the big picture. But here's the thing. You're midweek and you're rewriting director enrollment emails because it just needs to match the current climate. And by Thursday, 3 teachers called out, so you're rearranging coverage. And then Thursday comes and you're sitting on the floor in the toddler room during circle time and nap time. You went from strategy and understanding the strategic level of work to classrooms in less than 72 hours again. And here's the thing. You think it's because you're not delegating well enough or that you need better systems or processes or better staff or better boundaries. You don't. You've delegated the tasks. You have not transferred ownership. And your team knows it. They know that if they just look confused enough, or if they just don't understand enough, or they just say, I wasn't sure what you meant, they get another day and another chance while you continue carry the invisible weight and you are drowning in plain sight. I'm Chanie Wilschanski. I've been coaching early childhood leaders for close to 20 years, and I'm doing a live workshop this month for owners only. Delegation isn't the finish line. Ownership is. There is no replay. And I'm going to show you the 3 hidden reflexes that keep you stuck in the cycle and how to break it so your team actually owns their work and what they need to do. You can register at schoolsofexcellence.com/delegation, because here's the thing. Relief isn't coming after back to school, after enrollment, after summer, after. Relief is now. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. So this episode is being recorded in March, if you're listening to this when it just came out. And if you are feeling a little bit tired in this season, it's because for other entrepreneurs and business owners, March kind of signals towards the end of Q1. But for school leaders, March is actually the mid-year point because you guys started the school year in August, and some of you may have started in September. But March is the midpoint, and it's kind of this last checkpoint before the end of the year, right? So the year ends end of May or mid-May. For some people, it ends mid-June. But March is this very unique time where you're going to start seeing a lot of signals. And today's conversation is about helping you identify what those signals are and what you can do about them. So I always say that by March, the school year has already told the truth. Just some people are struggling with listening to what the truth actually is in this season. So March will reveal a couple of things, and I'll share them and kind of listen and hear what is resonating or landing true for you. In March, you already know who's not aligned. You already know which classrooms are feeling more unstable than others. You know why enrollment is not doing well at this point. You know which communication channels are breaking and why. And you know where you're possibly personally overfunctioning. Now, you would know the answers to these if you're doing regular alignment rhythms, one-on-ones, all of your usual check-ins. That's where you get the data that signals to you, oh, here's what's going on. Here's what's happening here. Now, the thing that you need to understand is that nothing is inherently wrong. It's just that if things have been repeating since August, it's not circumstantial anymore. Now it's infrastructure. Okay. So I'll say it again. If these things have been repeating since August, right? If you're still going in to have the 5th conversation with someone about coming on time, about the impact of coming late, if you're going in to have a conversation with someone for the 3rd time, for the 2nd time about a pattern, right? Now, this isn't circumstantial. This is not, oh, I'm just going to train them one more time. It's infrastructure. Now it's infrastructure. And that distinction matters because with circumstantial problems, there's some patience, right? There's a curve. When things are infrastructure, they require standards. You need to install standards, rhythm, ownership, consequence, guardrail, all the things that I talk about in my book, This Can't Be Normal. And so here's what I see every single year across this industry, okay? March is when staff burnout peaks. It's when director fatigue surfaces at a whole nother level. It's when fall enrollment actually starts to sharpen and you're like, oh, these are some of the patterns. This is what's going on. This is what we're going to look at for next year. Your margins feel a lot thinner. Your profit margins feel thinner because you've gone through flu season, beginning of the year season, the holiday season, Thanksgiving season, and a lot of those seasons end up becoming, it's like, okay, just do it this one time. Okay, just do it this one time. And then all of a sudden your margins start getting very thin. So people start panic saving or panic pivoting about what should we do about this? We're low on money. And everyone's making decisions from a place of urgency. Compliance feels a lot heavier right now because you're going into rooms and you're like, okay, this standard isn't upholding, this thing isn't upholding. And what's happening for a lot of you right now is leaders are asking themselves, can I do this for another year? Like, is this what I want to do again for another year? And this is why this time of year, you will see so many people seeking exits, burnout, exhaustion. I want to get out. I want to get out. I want to get out. I just did an event and multiple people were talking about how they just want to get out. They just want to get out. And whenever I hear that, I always look at, okay, that's a signal that something's going on inside of their building because March is seasonal pressure. There is a ton of pressure in March that you're feeling, not just from your school, but also in your personal life. Things start ramping up over here. And so if you ignore the signals that you're getting right now in March, May will become brutal for you because May will amplify everything that you're experiencing right now. So the reason why I want you to lean in and really pay attention right now is because anything that you're experiencing right now is not just going to go away, especially if it's been repeated several times. Right? Remember, I spoke about just a couple minutes ago, the difference between circumstantial and infrastructure. And so if you're experiencing something right now and you don't address it with infrastructure build, standards, ownership, rhythm, consequence, May is going to feel unbearable with these things because they don't get better, right? And so because May amplifies everything. You have graduations, you have staff transitioning, you have family emotions, you have summer planning, you have financial recalibration. Like what you avoid in March will be amplified and magnified in May. Okay. And like I said in the beginning of today's conversation, March is the last clean checkpoint before all of this gets amplified. So what do we do? Okay. So here's a couple questions that I want you to sit with. One, what has repeated at least 3 times since August? Okay. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times since August is a pattern. Okay. That's a pattern. Now, again, you're not solving anything right now. You're not going into, oh my gosh, this has been a pattern. What do I do? How do I solve? We're not doing that yet. We're going one step at a time. So stay with me. Okay. And if you're driving and you want to take notes and write this down, press pause, come back to the episode later. Okay. Or listen to it and then come back again when you can take notes. So the first question, okay, what has repeated at least 3 times since August? That's a pattern. So make a list of 5 or 6 patterns that you're currently seeing inside of the school. The second question, what am I absorbing the cost of instead of installing a standard? What am I installing the cost of instead of installing a standard? So what that means is what absorbing the cost, so I can explain that for you, is are you stepping in? Are you fixing it? Are you rescuing? Are you coming in just before, just to make sure that it feels okay? Are you editing your tone? Are you double checking? All of those things are doing extra things. That is a signal that infrastructure is missing. When you step in, rescue, carry, overfunction, people please, all of those are not bad things. They're adaptive behaviors for what's happening inside of your school. The reason we lean on those things is because the school doesn't have infrastructure. And I want to zoom out again because I've been saying this since the beginning of the year and really since I started writing this book, is that schools are not built on infrastructure. They are built on exhaustion. Somebody always is exhausted inside of the building. That is what my book, This Can't Be Normal, literally aims to solve. That's why I wrote the book. That's why it took me a long time to write the book, because I was waiting to study patterns again and again and again and see what is the issue here. And the issue is that there is no infrastructure. Infrastructure is shared standards, partnership and ownership, rhythms, escalation, consequence. You need all of those things to build real infrastructure. And so we are very desperate for relief because we're really tired. And so we try to run to answer these questions. But I first want you to just build some awareness here, okay? And my third question to you is, what conversation have I delayed because I'm hoping that summer fixes it? What conversation have I delayed because I'm hoping that summer fixes it? Okay. Summer doesn't fix infrastructure. It hides it temporarily, but it doesn't fix it. Okay. So let me just repeat the questions. Question 1 is, what has repeated at least 3 times since August? Question 2, what am I absorbing the cost of instead of installing a standard? And question 3, what conversation have I delayed because I'm hoping that summer fixes it? Okay. If you literally do nothing else in this episode and you just answer those 3 questions, you will have a lot more insight into what you actually need to prioritize and work on over the next 30 to 60 days. Okay. All right, let's take a quick pause here because I have a question for you as an owner. All right. What time did you wake up this morning? Now, when your alarm went off, when did your brain wake you up? Was it 2 o'clock? Was it 3 o'clock? Was it 4 o'clock? And here's the thing. You weren't thinking about your life, were you? You were thinking, did the person send the enrollment email that they were supposed to? Is ratio covered for tomorrow? Did anyone order more gloves? Meanwhile, your entire team is fast asleep because you're the only one that's carrying the mental and emotional load of an entire ecosystem that you technically, quote unquote, delegated to. And here's the thing that's the most frustrating for you. Because it is the invisible weight of leadership, nobody sees it. So everyone thinks you're so strong. Nobody sees you drowning in plain sight. They just see that you're still swimming. So you keep waiting just to get through this week, just to get through this enrollment, just to get through back to school, just to get through, but that week never comes. That day never comes. You keep waiting and the pattern keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Here's the thing. I've coached leaders for almost 2 decades and I'm doing a live workshop this month for owners only. Delegation isn't the finish line. Ownership is, and there is no replay. I'm going to show you why your brain does not let go and how to shift the weight so you're not the only one carrying things at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, actually, no one should be carrying it. I'm going to show you how to build infrastructure so nobody's waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can register today. It's free to register. schoolsofexcellence.com/delegation. You deserve to sleep through the night. Okay. schoolsofexcellence.com/delegation. The link is also in the show notes. All right. Let's get back to the show. If you want to go deeper with me, I'm going to take you guys a little bit deeper here because I don't want you to fix a million things. I want to help you understand how to recognize a pattern. One of the things that we do inside of Schools of Excellence and we do inside of our leadership consults, and you can find both of those links inside of the show notes, is helping you identify what is the pattern and what is that signaling to you. Because when you can know that, you actually know where to prioritize time, money, energy, people, and resources. So let's say you have a pattern that came up, right? Which is Jessica can't handle the class or Melissa keeps coming late. Okay. So that is the thing that you're writing down. Now, instead of writing that, I want you to think about, well, what's the pattern, right? So we're not identifying a person, we're looking at the pattern. And the pattern would be is we're seeing drift in classroom transitions. So usually these are the way that classroom transitions need to happen. And at this point of the year in March, we're noticing drift, meaning people are not honoring what the policy is and how we do transitions. Okay. Here's another pattern that you might see. Instead of looking at a specific name of like, oh my gosh, all of these teachers keep arguing over breaks and the assistant teacher or the curriculum specialist keeps having to come in and figure out and referee the break schedule. Okay. That is a symptom. What you want to look at from a pattern perspective is break coverage is creating anxiety and repeated check-ins from leadership. That's a pattern. When I can see the pattern, then we can understand what is the standard that we need to return to, who needs to own this, and then what is the rhythm we return to so that it doesn't drift. Let's take another example, okay? These classrooms aren't getting cleaned. We have 80,000 checklists, we have all the processes, we have all the systems, we have all the things, but these classrooms are still not clean. Every time my directors do a walkthrough, these classrooms remain unclean, okay? Again, that is a story and a narrative. We want to look at it from a pattern perspective. And so the pattern would be end of day cleaning is inconsistent because ownership is still ambiguous. End of day cleaning is inconsistent because ownership is still ambiguous. So I just did this on a coaching call 2 weeks ago with a director. She had 2 classrooms. They both share a bathroom, like a Jack and Jill kind of style. And they have checklists, they have processes, they all these stuff, but the bathroom still isn't clean. So I said, okay. She's like, we have an end of day checklist. And I'm like, I wasn't even going to ask you that end of day checklist because I know that you have an end of day checklist. Not because I asked you, but because I know that everyone already has done all the things. You have the checklist. You have the process. You have the system. You have the SOP. You have the binder. You have the reminder. You have all of the things. That's not the problem. The problem is not that you're lacking checklists. The issue is that there isn't a shared standard ownership rhythm consequence to that standard, right? So I said to her, I said, okay, ownership right now is ambiguous. She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, if I walked into the building, would I be able to go over to teacher A and say, what days are you guys in charge of the bathroom? She wouldn't be able to tell me. She would say, oh, whatever, we just switch off. We figure it out. We figure it out is the absolute worst strategy on the planet. There is no we figure it out. There is, this is who owns it, this is what time, and this is the rhythm of return. And this is the consequence if it doesn't happen. And all of a sudden, it gets figured out. You know what we figure it out means? It means that when they forget, you do it. The owner does it. The director does it. Or she reminds you. That's called we figure it out. We figure it out is I get 7 reminders and then I get it done. That's not called figuring it out. That's called someone needs to hold you and carry you, which leads to exhaustion, fatigue, and burnout, which means they're still lacking infrastructure inside of the building. So she said, okay, great. So we have classroom A does Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Classroom B will do Tuesday, Thursday, and they'll run on rotation. I'm like, great. Now ownership is not ambiguous. Ownership is clear. So another example, right? An owner came and she said, well, usually my assistant director does the interviews for new prospects, but recently I've been doing that. I'm like, okay, that means that it drifted. Interviews drifted away from the assistant director into your lap. Now, it doesn't matter what the reason is, right? Like it could be, I'm sure you have all the legitimate reasons in the world. That's not what we want to negotiate here, okay? What we want to do is we want to name the pattern and be like, oh, interviews is your job. You own interviews. Circumstances and life and disruptive forces, which I talk about in chapter 4 of my book, had it drifting to me because I'm the highest capacity person. I'm the person who will just absorb whatever falls. Now it's back on my lap. I am handing it back to you. It drifted onto me. I am handing it back to you. Here you go. So again, these are patterns. They're not character attacks. That's what makes it so much easier to navigate because you're not coming to the person and attacking them or their character or doing a write-up or doing an HR procedure that doesn't really do anything. You're naming a pattern and then you're going to be able to go address the pattern. Okay. Step 2 in the process, right? So remember I said from the question, so I'm walking you through some very specific examples here. You want to define the standard that needs to exist. So let's say, for example, what does a standard sound like in real life? So let's say you have attendance drift, right? Where people are not coming on time. So I'll tell you an interesting story, actually, because this will illustrate it really well. So when I was a director, I worked in New York City and everyone came to school via subway. And what we had was because the New York City subways are unpredictable, we created as part of our company standard that there was a 5-minute grace window. So if you came between 8:30 and 8:35, you were not marked late. It was still considered on time. Now, I had a teacher who in the first 2 weeks of school was coming every day at 8:35. And I was like, okay, if someone is arriving at the edge of the grace window in week 1, drift is already happening. Like she's already drifting because if she's coming at 8:35 in second week, by the 6th week, she's coming at 8:40. And by the 4th month, she's coming at 5 to 9. So I pulled her in and I said, hey, I see that you're coming at 8:35 every day. She's like, yeah, but that's not late. The grace window is till 8:35. I said, I know. And you're already using your margin and your grace window and it's the second week of school. Which means then in a couple of weeks, you're going to start coming at 8:40, not because you're not a good person, but because that's how life works. That's how drift works. So right now, the way that you're calculating is that you come to school at 8:35, which means if something happens or life happens or all of a sudden on your way out, I don't know, you got stuck behind a garbage truck or on your way out, you realize, oh, you know what? Actually, I really need the bathroom. And then you run in to use the bathroom and then you come out. Damn, now you're coming at 8:40. Right? And so that's where the excuses come in. We're like, I'm usually on time. Today I'm late. I'm usually on time. I'm like, no. You're usually late. Today you're on time. Right? So that's not what I told her. But she started to come on an earlier train. She started to come at 8:30 or 8:29 or whatever it was. And then every once in a while, she would come in like between 8:30, 8:33, 8:35. And then a couple months into the year, again, she started coming at 8:35 for a couple weeks. And I pulled her back in and I said, oh, drift is starting again. Drift is starting. So what we want to understand is that when we name the standard, ownership isn't ambiguous, right? So here's another standard. The standard is every team member gets a one-on-one every 30 days. Not every 40 days. Not every 45 days. Every 30 days. That's the standard. So when we drift from the standard, because life will happen, we return to the standard, right? So whenever I communicate that standard, I always tell the directors, I'm like, we don't do one-on-ones every 30 days when we have time, when we remember, when it's calm, when no one calls out. That's not what the standard is. The standard says that every staff member has a one-on-one every 30 days. That is the standard, which means it happens no matter what. Even if there's a snowstorm, even if this, even if that, even, right? Another example of a standard. New leads get a phone call within 4 hours. So again, that's a standard, which means who owns that standard? Who is in charge of making sure that every new lead who inquires gets a follow-up call within 4 hours? Because it's not get a follow-up call within 4 hours if I remember, if I'm in the mood, if I have time, if it feels authentic, if I like the parent, if I enjoy, if. That's not the standard. The standard is new leads get a phone call within 4 hours. And so this is the thing that's so important to understand when you're communicating standards to your team and to your leadership team. It's letting them know in advance, this is the standard. And now we're going to talk about what is the rhythm of return. Who owns this? What happens when we drift? Because drift is inevitable. Drift is inevitable. Drift is going to happen, which means life is going to happen. Stop planning your days like every single day, no one will interrupt you. Every single day, as long as you're in your job, you will get interruptions. So if you know that to be true, how would you design your day differently, right? That's the kinds of conversations that we want to be having. But instead, we're having obsessive conversations about what other system or process or checklist is going to save you. None. There is no checklist that will shock absorb real life. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So when we set a standard, we set it in understanding this is what happens no matter what. That's the standard, right? Again, notice what every one of these standards have in common. They're specific enough that drift is obvious, right? Drift is inevitable. We're all going to drift, okay? Next, once you identify the standard, then you're going to clarify who owns it, not who helps, not who contributes, who owns it, okay? So let's say for the interviewing, okay? Interviewing is part of your role. It drifted to me. I'm returning it to you. That's infrastructure language. There's no drama. There's no, I know you've been really busy. I know it's been a really hard season. I know you didn't mean for it to drift to me, blah, blah. No, that's called high school language. That's called high school language. That's what teenagers do when they communicate to each other. Grown-ups, adults, don't manage other people's emotions. They state the standard. Oh, interviews drifted from your lane to my lane. I'm returning it back to you. The interviews are back on your plate. And then you let the other person have agency in their life and come forward and say, okay, it's back on my plate. That means I have to figure out how I'm going to make space for it. I don't know how to make space for it. Can you help me figure out how we can make space for it? Sure, I can help you. Adult partnership. Adult partnership. Sounds shocking, right? But it actually works. And it actually happens in a lot of schools that are building infrastructure. Okay, here's another example. When ownership is ambiguous, we assume that everyone else is cleaning the classroom. So we're not going to have that anymore. You are in charge of this day. You are in charge of this day. When you look at all these examples, okay, if you do this with even one of your reoccurring patterns, you will finish the year stronger than you started. Not because you tried harder. You don't need to try harder. You don't need to push for. You need to build infrastructure, okay? If March is showing you a pattern and you're not sure how to translate it into infrastructure, which is standards, ownership, rhythm, consequence, that's what our leadership consults are for. That's what we do inside of our program. You could click the link in the show notes to book a call, and we'll assess whether a consult would make sense for you right now. And so there are two types of leaders in March. The ones who push through and then collapse in June, and the ones who understand how to build infrastructure and finish the year strong. And March is when a lot of these decisions are getting made. And so you already know what this year has been trying to tell you. You know. The question is, will you listen or will you overextend yourself and push? Okay? March is the mirror. It is the mirror. And if you listen now, May will not have to scream at you. You'll greet me. It will meet you right where you are. So I want to close up today's conversation with, sometimes when we hear different examples or different scenarios, we become a little critical of ourselves and we're like, oh, I shouldn't have let this happen. I shouldn't have listened. Everything that happened exactly the way as it needed to. And now, with new awareness and with new consciousness, you get to make a different choice, right? Ellen Langer, who was quoted on Oprah Daily many times, and I love so much of her work, but one of my favorite quotes that she says is, stop stressing over making the right decision and make the decision. Instead, make the decision right. Stop obsessing over what you could have done, what you should have done, why this person this, who betrayed you, who, took advantage, like where you let things fall, where you drifted. Those are hard. And you should sit with those emotions, especially if they're feeling overwhelming for you. I want to invite you to not stay stuck there and not ruminate and obsess and overanalyze, and use your time and energy and agency that you have. You do have agency and influence to say, what standard can I install? Where do I need to make ownership clear so it's not ambiguous? What rhythm can my team return to so that we can finish the year with more peace and ease and steadiness? And again, if you want help and support in getting clarity over which patterns can you actually install a standard for and build ownership, that's what the consult's for. So you could click the link in the show notes, and love to have a conversation with you. All right. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do two things for me. One, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And two, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week, and I appreciate that you have joined us.